When you turn the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3 others in field position to set up touchdowns, you ain't gonna beat anybody.
It's my team. It's my quarterback.
I'm very disappointed with my behavior.
Ready, down!
You're listening to the Between the Whistles podcast. I'm Coach Mac. And if you're wondering where that cool tune comes from, because I know, in spite of all of our audio problems, you are thinking, how does a group of guys who sound this crappy in a podcast manage to get such a dope intro tune, right? Well, I tell you, my boy Derek, also known as Derelict, on Twitch, wrote that song for us and produced a little jingle for us. So shout outs to Derelict on Twitch. If you check him out, he plays music online. That being said, again, I'm Coach Mac. I'm here, as always, with Coach Josh and Coach Bobby Tink. So, today, actually, let me go back and pay the bills. Between the Whistles is, as always, brought to you by CanadaFootballChat.com. And the reason why it's so important to drop that plug in at the beginning is because today we want to talk about something that's a little more in their wheelhouse. We want to talk about recruiting. Now, obviously, they're the subject matter experts on this one, but guys, we want to talk about, we see kids all the time, whether they're being recruited or not being recruited. We want to talk about what kids have to do in order to see themselves be recruited. So let's start. Coach Bobby, you're a head coach of a high school program. What is it you're telling your kids when it comes to guys who show up and say, Coach, I just want to play at the next level?
Well, the first and foremost thing is grades.
Mm.
A lot of guys, well, I shouldn't say a lot of guys, we've run into this problem here where guys will want that dream too late. And by too late, I mean too late in high school. Maybe they've struggled through grade 11 and now we're through the first semester of grade 12 and they're realizing that the grades are not where they need to be to get to where they want to be. So take care of that on the front end. Work with your guidance counselors and your teachers in there and let them know that you have these aspirations and let your coach know. And your coach is going to do everything in his power. Like, I'm pounding the emails and the Twitter and all the social media trying to get my guys exposed as much as I can.
Yeah, for sure. So before we started this podcast, Bobby, you said something that I thought was perfect, and we're talking about how. And this has been a recurring sort of theme, is how the kids have to have more of a balanced lifestyle and more things in their life than just the sports or more than just the football. And you said that they're basically their film or their resume is what college recruiters are going to look at. So talk to me about what the resume looks like.
Yeah, so I mean your film, your 4.5 minute clip of film that you've put on Huddle.
Wait, is that an optimal time? Is that why you say 4.5 minutes?
4.5 minutes optimal time.
Is that accurate? Research department? Is that
all research is indicating 4.5 minutes is good.
It's a good time. Everywhere I've read, a lot of college coaches I follow on social media, 4.5 minutes is their kind of time. That's your body of work.
Yeah.
And it really starts, and now in Canada we're starting to see this more often. I've noticed in the last little bit, but in the States it's more prevalent. Your grade 11 year, your junior year, that really counts for these guys. They want to get you listed going into your senior season of high school. So that's your body of work. Make it count. Put your best plays on there. Put the plays on your film that cover everything your position does.
Yep.
So if you're a receiver, for instance, I'll use that as an example. Don't just put the plays where you're catching balls. Put the plays where you're blocking as well. Make it known that you can do everything that position requires you to do for these coaches to be sold on you in 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, show me you're running hard on the backside of the play when the ball is thrown the other way.
Yeah.
And blocks.
Yeah.
Blocks.
And just to feed off of what Bobby was saying about getting your film up there in your grade 11 year, a lot of these coaches and their recruiting coordinators have their walls, they have their kids listed years out what they're looking for. So if you can get your film in there, they'll plug you in if they're interested. And guess what? Now they're going to show up and they're going to have more games maybe they can check out of you in your grade 12 year, your senior year, versus if you just start sending your film out either during your grade 12 year, they might get a couple games, or at the end of the season, well, now they can't see you live. And like a lot of coaches like to come see you live because they can see what you're like with your teammates in a game when things don't quite go your way.
Yeah, well, look at Canada Football Chat. They've got the CFC listing of the top recruits in Canada, but they also have the class of 2020, the class of 2021, because college recruits are looking at kids now, and it was unheard of when I was a kid to have anyone in grade 10 really being looked at that way, or and obviously technologically we're way ahead, but still, like, I mean, you look at the list now. I can look at the top 100 2 years ago, and it was still pretty accurate because some of the guys are still some of the top recruits this year because even though I was looking at them in grade 10.
Yeah, and now colleges and universities will have junior day, and that junior day is for juniors in high school. They're getting you that early now. They want you on their board that fast. Because it's a business. They want you before the next guy. Yeah. They see you before the next guy, and they want you before that other school gets a hand on you and steals you.
Yeah, I mean, I think athletes need to consider themselves assets, right? And the college coaches and the institutions that they want to go to are going to look at them as that. So if you're going to be a good asset, you need to be doing the proper things. So proper amount of time on film, highlight yourself. I don't want to be watching your film and trying to figure out, well, where is this guy? He's playing guard, but what side of the line is he on? Oh my God, I can't see him in the jumble. Get a nice little circle in there. Like you said before, Sean, if you're an offensive lineman, don't just show the pancakes. You want to see you running down the field. So just make yourself out to be a good asset because no one wants a bust.
Okay, so we know that players, Bobby, you were saying that how you do everything you can to help these guys, but there's also a certain amount of ownership on their part that they need to sort of take, not just with their grades, but also with things like their film and being their own agent. I know a lot of parents help kids, but a lot of kids need to take up their own campaigns and sort of like push their own film out and do their own recruiting for themselves. Kids should edit their own film, am I right?
For sure. I mean, don't come to me to do it for you. I have 40 other kids that would want the same thing. Not to mention, I mean, I don't know how to work it probably. So it's better coming from you. You can put your own jazz in there and you can fix it if you have to, and you can get exactly what you want.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, I think we'd all agree that you're your own worst critic. Yeah. So you should see what's worse about you before anyone else does. I mean, we can pick it out on film because that's what we're doing. But you know what you want to show. With the social media thing and taking that ownership on yourself, a lot of guys now, you go on social media, you can follow a player. In his profile will be the link to his huddle, and he's put that out there, and CFC does a great job. If you send CFC a message with your huddle on there, they're going to link you up, even if you're not even in their 150 or 100. Yeah,
so take ownership of your own career, get your film up, get it onto your social media, and then do your best to spread that around, including sending in your profile to Canada Football Chat and any other place where you think people might be able to find you. But that brings in a great segue. You mentioned social media. If you're being your own agent when it comes to recruiting and marketing yourself, I'm a PR professional. What about being your own public relations professional when it comes to what you're doing on social media?
So the first part in terms of recruiting, you're going to want to, in your profile, let's say it's a Twitter profile, you're going to want to use your real name, not some fake name or some nickname that someone calls you. Use your first and last name. That's what the recruiters are going to look for. So if your name pops up on a board for these guys, they're going to go on to that social media, or someone in their department is going to go on and look for you. If they can't find you, they may bypass you. You're going to want to have your grades in there, or a GPA of some sort. In Canada, we don't use the GPA model, but so your average. That way they know if you're recruitable to their school or not. If you're not at their level of average or GPA, they're just going to move on to you.
Academically eligible.
That's right. So you want to have that in there right away.
Yep. Your measurables.
Yeah, your measurables will never hurt. Obviously, that's easy for them. But you want to have stuff on there that's relatable to you and that's not negative.
Yeah. No one wants to recruit a kid and then they start digging into social media, or the kid turns out to be a stud, and then somebody starts poking around, finding old tweets and old posts on Instagram, and then all of a sudden, ooh, this doesn't look too good for us.
Someone always finds old tweets and old Instagram posts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it happens to everybody. So the rule of thumb basically that is if you wouldn't tell it to your mother to her face, don't put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And then that should keep you out of trouble. Because make no mistake, these schools, specifically the ones that are investing a lot of money in you in scholarships, are doing this background research to figure out if you're a guy that they want that's not going to cause them problems.
I mean, there's
not gonna
probably
make waves.
Oh, easily, and there's probably coaches on the sideline that have the game sheet, right? And they're watching you play. Okay, let's see if we even want to start recruiting this kid. And they're going to pull up your social media. They could be doing it before halftime of the first thing they come see you at. And if the first thing they see is something that's a little offside, bud, you just got scratched off the list.
Yeah. Derogatory comments, inappropriate pictures, all the things that we see a lot of NFL guys coming back to creep up on them and bite them on the ass, and you don't want that to happen to you if you're a kid.
No.
So invest in your future and clean up your stuff now.
Videos, pictures, anything that's going to cause an issue to you later on is get rid of it. Get rid of it. Start over.
Yeah.
Start over. Clear house and become a new person on the internet.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably best to just think of it as you're getting recruited to play, football in university. Look at it as though you're trying to get recruited for a Fortune 500 company, and that you don't want to lose your job over something silly that you did when you were 15.
Mm-hmm.
And if you live by that rule, you'll be okay.
Exactly. So let me take a moment to pay the bills here again, guys, as per usual. The Between the Whistles podcast is, as always, brought to you by CanadaFootballChat.com. Become a CFC insider today if you want to have in-depth look at the CFC 100 lists that we're talking about, and all of the draft analysis and the new signings and everything that's important for kids trying to be recruited. So we talked about how coaches are, going back to what we were saying before the break. We're talking about how coaches are looking at your social media. So that's a deal breaker. But one thing that we didn't mention when we were talking about how we interact with players is how coaches call us.
Yeah.
Coaches look up your social media. They look at your resume. They see they can see your video, but they come to us for other information. So, Bobby, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. So coaches generally call your head coach first, and then that conversation may get filtered down to the other coaches for some more feedback, because those other coaches are dealing with you, more often and maybe in a different setting outside of football. But they're looking for everything that they can't see, everything that because they like Sean says, they do the research on the social media. They see your film. They don't know your grades.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how you are in that classroom, how you are as a teammate.
Yep.
Are you involved in the community? That type of stuff. How are they to deal with? Do they cause problems? Are they really worth the investment to us?
Yeah.
That's what they're really looking for. They want to know that the effort that they're putting in is going to pay off for the program that they're in right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they want to see how you are with your teammates, so that if they can't make it to a game and they're not going to see it on the film, they're going to call the head coach and they're just going to ask, what's he like? Is he a good kid? Would you recruit him if I was in your situation? And a lot of it comes back to our reputation. So these coaches at the university level trust us because they know that we're not going to lie for a kid, and because we don't want to ruin our reputations.
Well, no, because we're going to be speaking on behalf of, dozens, if not way more kids over the next few years. So our word is all we have.
Yeah, and I make that quite clear with my kids is I will never tell someone something that's not true, because I can't lose that reputation, because no one will call me again.
Yeah. And they're not calling us for the film. They're not calling us for the measurables. They're calling us for the things that they don't see.
Yeah.
And
then they go on, like they're going to contact the head coach, and then they're going to contact the athletic director at the school as well. and they're going to find out what you're like. Are you just hanging around the halls, holding up the wall, not going to class? Are your grades good? You know, have you been suspended? Are you making it to class? The things that we might not have access to, they're going to go find out. And it all comes back to get you.
Yeah, don't be a piece of crap, even if you are a good football player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you really want it, you got to have to make some changes in your life.
Yeah.
Depending on what road you're going down. But if your friends are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or that you see that they're not, that's not going to be conducive to where you want to go,
Yeah.
you might have to put them on hold for a little bit and really focus on your goal and not your friends' goals. So.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is easy. So changing who you are to play football isn't going to be easy. But if it's something that you want, you're going to have to do it, And if not, it's a cold world out there.
Yeah, it's a little bit of sacrifice for a long-term investment.
Yeah.
That the school's not only making this investment in you, you're making the investment in yourself. And you got to think about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting an education, right? And that could open up many more doors when you're done playing football. Even in the world of football, that could open doors just by going to play university football.
Well, I mean, when we talk about the investment that universities are putting into high school players, I mean, even in Canada, there's a significant investment. But if you go below the border into the United States, where football programs have a large number of scholarships that they provide for a lot of players, but when you factor in how much a university education will cost in the United States, room and board, all of the things that what a quote unquote full ride will give you, you're actually looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment in one kid.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming from Canada because you're an international student. So
Yeah.
that's
Significantly
even more.
Yeah, I didn't even think
that's
of that.
even more.
Yeah. So you better make yourself look some good.
Yeah.
And we anecdotally, Josh and I were laughing about this the other night, how we had two kids coming out of our program this year, both registered to go to the same school. And so when they were identified by the university coach who reached out to us, one of them was probably statistically not what you would consider to be, the top of his game. As a lineman, he was, he was a little smaller, little lighter, and the other one was, very large, and, seemed like statistically to be the best guy. But when they called us, one of them is a stand-up guy who was a leader, a captain, played two ways, was a complete warrior. Yes, and he was smaller, but he was much better of a football player than the guy who weighed 300 plus pounds and was very tall and pretty much quit on us.
Yeah, I mean, he really sold it for himself.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you look at through the year, he turned the heads himself. There was nothing really, with a little bit of teaching from Sean and whatnot, but he put the work in. He did that himself. He invested that in himself because, I don't know if it was Sean or someone at some point in time told him, the potential is there. It's very real.
Yeah.
It's almost, you can almost get there. And he did the work and good for him.
But for me, it's the guy who did the work to get himself out of contention is more the point I think that I'm trying to make here is by being a real, he probably could have been a decent football player, but by being a bad person, and I hope nobody realizes who we're talking about here, but by being not a good teammate and not a good player for us, he basically worked himself out of an opportunity to play at the next level.
Well, and then he quit, but in a way he lied when he went to talk to that school and basically said he was a football player. I'm sorry, you didn't even make it through training camp, so you can't really call yourself a football player at that point, right?
Yeah, no, exactly, 100%. And he, some people just want it for the wrong reasons, right? So
yeah, exactly.
You can certainly ship your way out of that, and it goes back to the social media thing.
Yep.
I follow a lot of college coaches in the States, and you'll see it this time of year. They're scratching guys off of lists because of the things that aren't football related.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, so the moral of the story is don't just be a good football player, be a good person.
Yep.
Invest in your future. and do all the things that are required of you, not just on the football field, but and also be your own best advocate.
Yep.
So if you like the Between the Whistles podcast, we encourage you to please go to betweenthewhistles.ca and find us. Contact us. Anything you want to talk about, we're more than happy to discuss with you. And also, you can find us at CanadaFootballChat.com and anywhere that podcasts can be listened to. I'd like to thank the coaches, and most importantly, I'd like to thank you for listening and engaging with us. Peanut Gallery, we love to hear from you. All right, thanks, guys.
Deuces.